Super Dragon Ball Z is a new fighting game for the PlayStation 2 from Atari, Craftsmeister, and Namco Bandai. Now this has been touted as an attempt to make a real serious fighting game for Dragon Ball Z fans. It's definitely got a little bit of a pedigree to it. One of the producers of the original Street Fighter II consulted on and worked on the design of Super Dragon Ball Z. If you've played any recent modern 3D fighting games, you're going to pick up Super Dragon Ball Z and feel immediately really familiar with it. This is a benefit to a certain degree since it's got a real pick up and play quality to it. But it still doesn't have the level of depth that real serious hardcore fighting game fans are looking for, and at the same time it sacrifices a lot of the flash that has been a hallmark of past Dragon Ball Z fighters. Now, Super Dragon Ball Z originally started as an arcade fighting game in Japan. You have a handful of options here, including an original arcade mode, a survival mode, which is like the original arcade mode except you only have a single life bar to fight all your opponents with, a versus mode, and a training mode. And that's it, really. But there is a custom character card system in Super Dragon Ball Z that makes it a lot more enticing to come back. Basically, before you start getting into the game seriously, you're going to want to go and create your own character card, which has you select one of the game's 18 playable characters, give them a custom name, as well as a special custom color palette, and then you go fight. Every time you complete a fight, you get battle points. These battle points can then be used to upgrade your character's stats, get new moves, and so on. Additionally, as you play through both the original arcade mode and the survival mode, you'll earn Dragon Balls. Once you collect all 7 of the Dragon Balls, you can summon the Dragon Shenron, and he'll grant you a wish.
Shenron, please come out!
Now this wish can range anywhere from giving you an additional color palette to choose from for your character, to unlocking a new character altogether. Now the actual fighting in Super Dragon Ball Z kind of feels like an amalgamation of a lot of different modern 3D fighting games. Though that doesn't mean that the game isn't without a few kind of special Dragon Ball Z inspired twists. A lot of the moves that you'll pull off are going to be big energy beam attacks, and there's going to be a lot of tossing characters through walls and buildings, and certain characters have the ability to transform in the middle of a fight. A lot of real staple Dragon Ball Z stuff. But the actual combat itself is very familiar. Tap your attack buttons 3 times, you're going to come up with some sort of a combo. Do a quarter circle on the D-pad and hit an attack button. You can pretty much bet with most characters that's going to give you some sort of energy attack. When you first start off, each character really only has about 8 different moves, so there's not a lot of depth there. Obviously, as you build up your character with your character card, you're going to get more moves, but at the same time, there is a ceiling to that, and eventually it doesn't take long for you to figure out everyone's moves, because a lot of those moves are shared between different characters. One of the things that has made a lot of the past Dragon Ball Z fighting games really endearing is how well they translate the feel of the Dragon Ball Z anime into the game. Just a lot of real over-the-top cinematic camera angles, ridiculous power battles with huge energy waves, things of this nature. And there's a little bit of that in Super Dragon Ball Z. The art style is actually more evocative of the original Dragon Ball Z manga than it is of the anime, which is interesting because most other Dragon Ball Z games, fighters or otherwise, tend to try to emulate the anime a lot more, and there's definitely a different feel to the manga, so that's really a nice touch. And the characters look really nice and they animate well, and there's certainly a bit of punch to the energy attacks that they have. But it also feels a little bit staid. If you look at it, characters are always being seen from the side, it shifts to a different camera angle very rarely, and it's just not as exciting as other past Dragon Ball Z fighting games have been. So while the art style might be inspired by the manga, the voice cast from the US version of the Dragon Ball Z anime still comes in and does the work for all of the characters, voicing all of the 18 different characters that are available in the game. And they all do a good job, as they usually do. There are also a few interesting options for the audio. As you progress, you can unlock different characters to provide the narration for the game, which kind of a neat little touch. Other than that, you expect a lot of the same sort of Dragon Ball Z crazy sound effects, a lot of familiar music, as well as, of course, the voice actors. The biggest problem with Super Dragon Ball Z is the question of who it's really made for. Now, Atari would have you believe that this is a game that's suited for hardcore fighting game fans. But the fact of the matter is that the game just does not have the right amount of depth to really draw in people that are serious about their fighting games. At the same time, it doesn't really have all of the flash and just sort of the over-the-top enthusiasm and excitement that we've found in past Dragon Ball Z fighting games. A lot of them have been much more visceral than this, if not just as technical. So it's kind of in a middle ground. It's really not going to satisfy hardcore fighting game fans, and at the same time, Dragon Ball Z fans aren't going to get everything that they want out of a Dragon Ball Z game.